Welcome to Soundbreaker. In today's episode, we're talking to Jessica Muñiz-Collado, who is a founder and a CEO of NIZCO Music. Jessica, I hope I didn't mispronounce your last name.
You
Collado.
did it
Am I
perfect.
right?
Perfect.
Amazing.
You
Thank
nailed
you for
it.
joining us. Thank you for joining us today. And for our listeners who might not be familiar with you, could you please introduce yourself and we'll start diving into it.
Sure. My name is Jessica, and like you stated, I am the founder CEO of NIZCO Music. I'm also an assistant professor of music business at the University of North Texas. I'm actually a Texas transplant. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. Was born and raised there, and I'm just very passionate about supporting the future of music and supporting artists so that way they can achieve sustainable careers. Really, my business model is helping musicians compose their careers to their own beat. And BEAT is actually an acronym for business, education, artist development, and technology. And through research, I've come to find that those are the four pillars to a sustainable music career. So that's what, I'm really trying to get out there and not only help my students, but help, industry artists as well.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Just before we dive into it, you're from Miami
Yes.
and Miami-Dade County, and you live now in North Texas,
Yeah.
or University of North Texas, which is in Dallas. Now,
Yeah.
the music scene comparable from Miami to Dallas.
Well, Miami for me has always been, a lot of Latin music for sure. So I'm Cuban Puerto
Yes.
Rican, so it's a very rich Caribbean
Oof.
type music scene. I think some people can think when they think Latin music, depending where they are in the country, they categorize it as like Tejano music or norteño music or regional Mexican music or things. But in Miami, you won't hear that. You hear mostly that Afro Caribbean influence type Spanish music. I know there's a lot of EDM. I remember growing up with a lot of that, a lot of hip hop.
Mhm.
But when I moved to Texas, and I've only been there, it's going to be my third year, it was one of these moments where I was like, wow, this is a different Latin music scene. There is still reggaeton there, but I'm getting a lot more exposure to regional Mexican music and just that type of sound. A lot of country music. There is definitely a big hip hop presence as well. I love EDM, so there's not that much that I've found so far, at least in North Texas, but it's been a great experience. And one thing I will say about Texas is, you can look at certain artists, and depending on the genre, you can really make like a seven-figure career as a musician and like not even have to leave the state. It's pretty
Wow.
impressive, the following. And and it's very motivating as well. I mean, Texas has the Texas Music Office, which is fantastic. It's out of the governor's office, and I think that says a lot about the state and what they value when it comes to music as an art and a career, and they want to keep music alive in Texas. So I found that really, drawing to me, of saying like, okay, moving to Texas, this is also reassuring that it was a good move to make.
Amazing. A plug in for Texas. We love that.
Yeah, plug for
We love
Texas.
both. We love Miami, well, with Florida and
Yes.
Texas, both.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Listen, Jessica, can you take us back a bit to your teenage years and what got this whole thing started, this passion for music, a love for music, and made you kind of carve and take that path into where you are now?
Sure. Yeah. I started playing. Well, I'll backtrack if I'll try and make it quick, but I think a backstory is kind of important because it really comes down to my mindset of where I am today. So, like I said, I was born in Miami, but I went to school in Hialeah, Florida.
Mhm.
Um, and if you were to Google Hialeah now, first of all, the houses are ridiculously expensive, and they were not like that. And it's one of
True.
those,
True.
it's just because of the market right now. But Hialeah wasn't the bougie spot, so that wasn't the spot where people wanted to flock to when you go and you visit Miami.
Mhm.
And my first home, where I was born into, is actually a trailer park in Hialeah. And my parents they came from, my dad came from Puerto Rico. My mom and my grandparents and my uncles and that side of my family, they're actually Cuban exiles.
Mhm.
And it's a big difference from being an immigrant. So them coming here, they kind of really implanted this mindset to me that, you know, You control how you see your situation, and you just push forward and push through it, because the very fact that we're in the United States is already better than where they came from. So it was
Hmm.
very early on that you're not a victim. Life is going to be tough, but you got to keep pursuing it like a marathon. It's not going to happen
Hmm.
right away, but you just keep going. So, I went to all Title I schools, which, if you're not familiar with Title I, those are low income schools. So I picked up a pair of drumsticks when I was about 12 years old in middle school band. And I just said, this is the coolest thing in the world. And the reason why I picked drumming is because my brother was playing trumpet in a high school marching band. And when I went to see him play, I saw the drum line and I said, I got to be a drummer. Like, this is so cool. I didn't know anything about that this could be a career. What can I do with it? I just wanted to play drums. So I started playing drums. I ended up getting, thankfully didn't have to pay a dime to go to the
Hmm.
Frost School of Music in University of Miami, Coral Gables. I studied percussion performance there. And even while I was still there, I didn't grasp the concept of this can really be a career. So with that, it was one of those things of, I'm just getting a percussion performance degree to play. I don't know what I can do with it. There wasn't a business curriculum embedded, or business classes embedded in our curriculum. It was just eat, sleep, play drums, which was cool, right? But then you graduate and it's like, now what? And
Where
when
do I
I
go from here?
graduated, yeah, and there was no social media the way it is now. And the other thing that really stood out and was difficult is that it was the Great Recession. It was 2008 when I graduated. So now I graduate with a music degree, and I can't even, it's really hard to find a job, let
Yes.
alone, especially in Miami. It's very, expensive there as it is. So I said, well, if I really want to make music work, I got to start thinking of other sources of income to supplement my main goals as a performer, a composer, things like that. So I started teaching in Miami-Dade County public schools. And I taught middle school music, and that was fun. I'm not going to lie, those kids were hilarious. So as I'm here teaching, I decided I want to go back to graduate school to fill in some other gaps that I was missing, especially in the areas of composition. Because even though I had a performance degree, I decided I really like writing music, and I wanted to write for film and television.
Hmm.
So I went to graduate school, and then I studied at Vermont College of Fine Arts, which is a low residency program. So I didn't have to move to Vermont. I was able to stay in Miami and then go to the campus every so often to, get my lectures and basically these
Hmm.
really nice music residencies. So that filled in a lot of gaps, but I still graduated with gaps of, how do I make this a sustainable career? And this has nothing bad to say about higher ed. I'm in higher ed right now, so that would be kind of, would go against me, but it just showed the reality of, there seems to be a flaw that's happening here, that I think it's hurting musicians from pursuing their goals of what it is they want to do. So when I graduated, I said, okay, it doesn't seem like I'm going to get all my answers right now in higher ed. Let me, start saving money, buying books, reading books, going to conferences, and so every type of money I would get from either giving drum lessons or royalties I'd get from sheet music publications, I'd get teaching, all of that, I need to supplement my career, because I just came to the conclusion that I need to be in the music industry ecosystem. I need to be under this umbrella. I couldn't see myself doing anything else. And it was just one of those, I got to make it work. I got to just
Yes.
push forward and make it work. And, you know, I really got into sync licensing, and I was able to work on some TV shows, mostly for Spanish networks.
Hmm.
One of my first and longest gigs was Los Golden Boys, which is a Mexican boxing show. Ironically, we were talking about Mexican music, and I'm
Hmm.
Puerto Rican. So, but it was a heavy Mexican score, and it was it's produced by Oscar de la Hoya and Mario Lopez. So that was
So you were
really.
scoring. You were actually making the music for
I
these.
was I was working with the music supervisor, who was
Ah.
it was really interesting. because he would say to me sometimes, he goes, listen, this is the scene, this is what they're painting, and I don't have really a visual. They're like, you need to make a track that, like, if the here's this kind of rugged boxer and he's walking his daughter to school or driving here, or a family setting, like what would that sound like? And so I'm just creating these tracks, and I create maybe between, the actual full scores to stems to tracks, like over 100 tracks made for
Mm.
this
Wow.
show. And it was great, and that also propelled a good relationship with a music supervisor, who he's come back and say, hey, you know do you have something else for another project I'm working on for PBS or another network? But one thing I did learn with time, and not with this, individual, but other things, is because I didn't have the knowledge of reading a contract well. I'm not an
Hmm.
attorney,
Hmm.
but there's basic knowledge that I think every musician should know, and to not get caught up on the emotional side of, oh my gosh, I'm getting this deal, but
Hmm.
rather really focus on, let me use some discretion, calm down, and read this carefully, because there was a few times where I did get screwed over, and I can't get that music back. I can't argue it because I agreed to it. And so there was a lot of, moments where I realized this is frustrating, but I didn't want to leave the industry, but I also didn't want to see other people go through the same thing that I was going through. So hence NIZCO Music was born. And NIZCO Music really came out during COVID. And,
Oh.
I've learned that with crisis, there's opportunity. I heard a musician composer tell me that one day, and I said, that's so true. And then COVID hit, and it wasn't even a matter of, I'm starting my business to get money. Especially during this trying time, I actually gave away hundreds and hundreds of hours of free contact tailored to whoever I was talking to on the call. So it wasn't
Wow.
even like putting out things. It was like, hey, let's hop on the call. What's your issue right now? And I was surprised that so many musicians were just panicking about the same problem. And it was, I can't perform live anymore. How am I going to make money? And so, really, what I'm doing for artists is helping them establish a portfolio career, examining their skill sets. You can make money this way, this way, this way, this way.
Hmm.
And if they say, well, I don't know about tech, well, I will teach you tech, because I have a background in, you know, working with DAWs, and not only but composition, and because I've worked on film and television and sync, the turnaround times are very quick. So you have to kind of be your own mixer, your own engineer, and put everything together right away. So I had the confidence to work with these artists and just kind of help them get through this slum that they were in. And
Hmm.
some of them became longer clients, and then they, became paying clients. But I've been very fortunate and humbled to meet incredible musicians. I mean, at the professional level, all over the world. And, we have good relationships, and we even talk about, like, maybe we'll collaborate on a project one day. Really, that is my mission, as a business and as an educator. It's supporting the future of music. And, you know, I encourage artists that, whether it's on your own or a consultant like myself, or you just kind of shopping around listening to podcasts, the more you educate yourself, the better it's going to be for you. And if something sounds too good to be true, do some digging. Don't take it for face value. Even what I'm saying, if you're like, I don't think a sustainable career is really possible, I challenge you, like, look into it. Let's have a conversation.
What makes what you're doing insane is validation to everything that you're doing because of the love that you have for the music business and the industry, and you're doing it from the heart. I could see you're very passionate about it, and to become a music career consultant or slash
Mhm.
shrink, because you said, I kind of bring these musicians from the slums. They come to me and they don't know what to do, and how can they make this a career, and how they can make it a full-time thing that they can make money off of it, because that's what they love and that's what they know and that's what they're passionate about. Very interesting. So
Mhm.
how do you transition from one thing to another? And I guess the reason for it, I just have to say, beside, yes, that you want it and the drive you have and you keep constantly educating yourself, is also the passion you have for it. You have that passion. You want it. You,
Absolutely.
yes, yes, and you care about it. And you became a professor also at the University of North Texas.
Yes.
And so, beside being a music career consultant,
Yeah. So
and
with North Texas was interesting because I think the business helped propel that position, to
yes,
get that because if
not to
somebody
mention, you're still an entrepreneur who started her own business, her own company too.
right. Yes. So it was interesting because I was if somebody were to told me, 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, you're going to be a professor at just so you know, this is a statistic I heard. University of North Texas College of Music is the largest public music university in the nation. It's
Wow.
averaging 1,400 music majors. UNT was very high on my list when I was in high school thinking about auditioning. But, University of Miami was in my backyard and I said, I'm going to give it a shot. But, to hear that and to say, hey, we want you to run this graduate MBA music business program and we want you to be a part of the creation of the BA in commercial music degree, which has a music business track, and just basically oversee everything music business at UNT. It was like, wow, it's kind of hard to say no to this because not only do I get to work with graduate students who some of them are even my age. Yeah,
Hmm.
and I've no shame. I'm 38, and to see someone who's in school and they're stressed and they're like, how am I going to do this? And it's kind of like, listen, if I can do it, especially
You
where
could
I
do it.
came from and my upbringing stuff is like, you can do it, and you have more resources today to make it
Yes.
work
Yeah.
than I had in the past. So that was something for me, it was very hard to say no to, not because it was just UNT, but because I get to basically bring what I work with my clients, I get to bring it to the classroom and make
Yes.
a greater effect with these students and just connecting. I really enjoy bridging gaps. So it's one of those, here's this one student who they have a really good skill set or even a soft skill where I have a friend or a colleague in the industry who they're like, man, I really need some help. It's like, would you be open for an intern? Even if it's free, even though I always encourage to pay, but if they give it free, it's still a great, valuable experience for the student. They're like, I never thought about an internship. I go, I got a student for you. Give me a day or whatever. Students like, hey, you want to go work for this record label or this person's publishing company or this? And I think for them, it's more of somebody's looking out for me and really trying to see like that I can do this. Because I think we get caught with this if we're not accomplished by a certain age, if we don't
Yes.
have, so much money by a certain
Yes.
age, it
Yeah, no, that
really,
social pressure thing, we don't fall
yes.
for. Yeah, you don't want to
Yeah,
fall for that. Well,
and
listen, you
it's,
wear four hats. Number one, a professor at a university, you're a consultant, a music career consultant. You are an entrepreneur, run your own
mhm,
company. And on top of it, you're a musician, you're an artist.
mhm.
So where do you have time? How do you make the time between all these things? You know,
Well,
pretty amazing.
yeah, it's really the whole portfolio career, right? So there was a time where
Yes.
performance was my main primary source of income. It was going very strong, and I've played at different locations, not only nationally but internationally. And it was like, okay, this is fun. But then I said, man, I really want to compose, and it actually has less stress on my body of just moving around a lot.
Yes.
So being a composer, I got into that pretty hardcore. But then when I started getting burned, I was like really getting this draw, like I said, to be more in the consultant role. So a portfolio career is just knowing when I use the analogy of a drum kit, and I'm actually using this for another project I'm working on now, is just you're building your kit. And like the
Yes.
bigger drum kit you have, the more options you have. Um, but with the education right now and teaching at UNT, that's my most time and energy is dedicated to that. I still have clients, but I also want to be respectful to the fact that if somebody wants to work with me, if I cannot do it at a specific time, I will let them know. Like now, there's no classes, it's summer, so I could take on
Yes.
more clients, right? So, it's just managing that. And then the composition, you know, again, my summer is I can write more. But when sync projects come along, you never know when they come. Sometimes I'll
Yes.
get an email and they're like, hey, do you have anything in your library for this? And, the day before I moved to Texas, that happened to me. And I was like,
Amazing.
okay, let me unpack my gear and, set this up real quick. But
Jessica, by being a musician yourself and a music artist and working with music artists, what challenges you think a lot of the current music artists face uh,
Right.
in our current times.
Yeah, I think one of the things before we start, the music industry is not perfect. Let me preface with that.
Yes.
I think we all know that. But
Yeah.
I think before we start pointing the finger at who to blame, we have to look at ourselves and what is stopping us from moving forward. It could be something as small as time management. It could be just a low self-esteem. It could be an imposter syndrome. It could be a lot of things that those are things we
Hmm.
can't control. I could say if I wanted to, I'd have so many reasons to be upset with many men in the music industry, but I had many male mentors. So I lean toward that. And I'm like, I can't do that because I've been in situations where they go, Jessica, I have a friend of mine, they're in a band, they need a drummer. And I'm like, sure, I'll be in the band. And then they'll say, no, they don't want a girl because they said the girl's going to break up the band. And then I'm like, well, then why are you coming to me? Well, I wanted to know if you knew any guys. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a spit in the face, But so many situations like that. I was also in a situation with a band where, I was told to wear more revealing clothing when I play. And I was like, I'm already a girl drummer. How much more sexy do you want it to be? All of that happens. But again, filter it, pass it through, because if I sit in bitterness and resentment,
Yes.
I would not be where I am today. So I think number one, we have to think about what we can control and our response to certain situations. It doesn't make any of this stuff right, but it's not going away anytime soon.
Yes.
Now,
Uh,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, no, no. And the other thing is just really educating yourself. The music industry is always changing. So we have to be, read current trends, read articles, follow the
Yes.
money. What's happening with the money
Well, the
and with
music business,
technology?
yes, you're right. It is changing, and we're going to talk
Yeah.
about that in a second.
Hmm.
It's changing rapidly. Let's talk about your nomination, 2024, this year, Music Business Educator of the Year.
That was fun. That came out of left field. I didn't expect that. It was just great to be nominated, by the Music Business Association, where they
Hmm.
give awards to music business educators. I got to meet some amazing people.
Yes.
I just took advantage of the event and going to Nashville and learning about the future of AI in the music industry and what that's like and what I can do as an educator and even as a business owner to help my clients and my students be prepared for this big shift that's already happening in the
Hmm.
industry.
Amazing.
Mhm.
You mentioned AI. What do you think of the future of the music business? It is changing
Mhm.
rapidly. Technology always, since we went digital back in 99 or 2000,
Mhm.
that's when we started seeing a big shift in the music business itself. It's going towards one direction. Yes, it's, people love to go to concert and listen to acoustic music and all of that. Absolutely. We're not taking that away. We love it. I love it. We enjoy it. And that's the basis of making music. Technology always been big part of the music business also, even before we went digital, when we go produce songs, they have the modules and the samplers and all of this.
Mhm.
But how do you think the music, what's your kind of outlook or your prediction, like where the music business going and 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 what changes you'd like to see also, but again, where is it heading to right now?
I'm going to be honest.
Please.
I think I think my brain, how it works, is thinking 48 hours ahead. There's
Mm,
so much bandwidth in my brain that can only handle so much future predictions. I'll let other professionals who are dedicated to data to handle that. But just from what I've seen with AI, um, I don't think we have to now speak for myself. I'm not afraid of it. When it first came out, it was the threat, right? Well, and I'm a composer. Well, I have no job. But then I meet composers who are friends of mine who they work for the AI companies that create the music. So it's like you still need a human element to do that. One of the things I do with my clients is I do metadata for them to kind of really organize it on a one sheet. And so that way they have a document where if somebody says, hey, what are the moods of your track? Or how do you describe your track? I give them all this information that comes out of an AI software that I use that again takes the human biasness out. So it's one of these things where the AI was helpful because an artist may think, well, I'm trying to go for an Americana sound. Well, based on your tempo, your key, your sound, all that, it's actually saying you lean more pop. And, so it's important to know this because when you're pitching for sync, let's say you can't maybe get like, I don't know why no one's picking my track. Well, maybe because your metadata is not accurate. And this music supervisor, when they do a search, your song's not appearing in their playlist or their library. So, I see the value in that. And so I'm excited about that. I do think, though, with AI, though, there's still the problem. This was talked about the music biz conference was,
Hmm.
transparency,
Yeah.
traceability, and compensation. Where is this going? And who's controlling it? We have all the issues with the ghostwriters and Spotify took down all those tracks. So I think those are things that we're kind of in a wild, wild west right now, kind of like cryptocurrency was in the beginning. It's like all these coins are coming out and we can't trace the sources of it. So I think we need to get a grasp on that. And then from there, we can see where everything else will go. But I really enjoy the tech wave that we're on. And
Hmm.
on a positive side of this, another one is I think it will help diminish a bit of the ageism that is kind of in the music industry right now. And I talk to older artists where they're like, they're not giving me a shot because I'm 40 or something. I know we have rare occasions where some artists get picked if you have a good A&R rep to really advocate for you. But now we're going to have avatars and we're going to have an avatar artist. And even though there's a human behind it, but the avatar could be 17, 18 years old and the person behind it could be 30, creating the music. And I
Hmm.
think this is a way that might be happening. I don't know when, but it's going to be happening.
You're involved in the Recording Academy, Texas chapter. And let's talk about that and how has this influenced your outlook on the future of the music industry?
Mm. Well, I just got elected as a board governor for the Texas chapter of the Recording Academy. So I haven't really
Congrats.
explored many duties yet. So I really can't speak on that. But I have been a voting member for the Recording Academy for a few years now, and it's great to see just what they're doing in terms of just expanding and supporting artists. From the first meeting I've had, it was really good. But
Hmm.
in addition to Recording Academy, I will say the College Music Society is another organization that I'm on the board of, representing music industry, which is important because now we're trying to separate, or not separate, we're trying to add into curriculum the importance of having music business foundations, music industry concepts in higher ed. So that way, when students graduate, they don't have the same problem that myself and many other musicians had where, well, how do I make money when I
Hmm.
graduate?
Interesting. What advice you would have for musicians that's struggling today, beside educating yourself, which is you
Mm-hmm.
emphasized on it a few times, say, educate yourself, educate yourself, educate. So it's really important.
I would say, yeah, I go back to Simon Sinek, where he really talks about finding your why.
Yes.
And, he said something great about people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. There's hundreds of music consultants out there. There's music coaches. There's all these people. You can Google it. And some of them charge very little and some of them charge tens
Arm
of
and a
thousands
leg.
of dollars. Yeah, an
Yeah.
arm and a leg, right? But in the end, it's, if someone wants to go and say, well, I graduated with a saxophone degree and there's 500 other saxophonists in the country who also graduated, there's only one you. There's only one you, and you can play the saxophone well, but people buy why you do it. And so you need to find a tap into what is your why. For me, my why is, again, supporting the future of music. I can, again, have every reason to be upset at the industry, to just give up. This is all, like a shark infested water, but I don't, because that's my why and that's what keeps me going. And the other thing I would say to them is it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So just take it, one step at a time and just keep going, because sometimes COVID came out of left field, right? And for some people it was a very good thing, as terrible as COVID wasn't, on the health side, and I would not wish it again,
For the
but for
music
some
industry, it
people
was pretty big, pretty good,
it was
especially for the
it,
DSPs.
right. Even music retail, the amount
Yes.
of music instruments and guitars that were purchased, right?
Wow.
Because people are at home now and they can take up learning an instrument and things like that. Podcasting went up through the roof. So it's really something of just take it at pace and just kind of monitor what's happening. But if your why is you can't see yourself doing anything else but just being in the music industry, then you have to analyze and find a way to make it work.
Any upcoming projects or initiatives at NIZCO Music that we should look forward to for our listeners and viewers, and people's going to be inspired by your positivity and your interesting story, but more your positivity and outlook on life, you know?
Right now with NIZCO Music, we're trying to let artists know about our metadata service where we'll take an MP3 of your song and just run it through an AI and then do our finishing touches to kind of help the artist establish, a better voice and an understanding of what their mood and their sound is so they could pitch it for sync licensing. And then we have our Beat Shop, which is a buy, get, give merch shop. So it can be something as small as you buy a shirt. Anytime somebody buys a shirt, like I said, I'm very passionate about this. I will do speaking engagements for free, but sometimes I need help with gas to just get there. So any, little bit counts. But if you spend a certain amount of money at the Beat Shop, you actually get a free session or a free session for you and your band, depending on the tier of what you spend. So we're just really pushing this buy, get, give model. Again, to just really let people know that we're out there. Thank you, Bob, for having me because this helps get the word out that NIZCO Music is around. And, I want to meet artists. I want to talk to, I want to help them.
Well, it's not just NIZCO Music, it's the person who behind NIZCO Music. Absolutely. Your positive outlook, your enthusiasm, and again, your positive energy that you reflect is absolutely what drives all of this. And your passion and love for the music. I interview a lot of people and all types of people, and, not to compare, everybody's great. And every day I learn something new and I come across people, but at the end of the day, it's always the mindset, the positivity and the drive and the passion of what they love to do. And we're talking about the music business, obviously, because that's what we're in.
Mhm.
I want to thank you for joining us today, Jessica. It was absolutely amazing and great to have you. This concludes today's episode of Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials. Stay tuned for other episodes. Thank you very much and see ya.
Thank you, Bob.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.